Hi, we're back for part 2 here in 3.1. And let me digress for just a moment. You guys, it was really good to see you on the Zoom kind of mini conference today. I definitely want to do that. I feel really good. It's been kind of lonely here. It's been weird not seeing you. I love our time in the classroom, and to have that kind of taken away from us for some, it's got to be pretty tough to deal with. So that was cool, and we'll do that, like I said, every Tuesday, Thursday, to those of you who want to join us. So as we're moving away from interviews, hi Quincy, come here Quincy, come say hello. Here's our big boy of the house. That's Quincy, and he's a very big boy. Yes, he is. He's about 15 pounds a cat, which is not the biggest cat in the world, but he's pretty big for us. And he's very handsome and very nice. He came to us as just a sickly little runt next to death. I took him to the vet as a tiny kitten, and the vet just looks at me and goes, "Where do you find these things?" You know, and we get some medication lined up, etc., and a procedure, and he just kind of looks at me and says, "You know, good luck. Let's hope for the best." And when Queller does that, it's like, "Oh, you poor thing." But so Quincy's a good boy. Anyway. We were talking about interviewing, so let's pick up on testing, considerations, reliability and validity. We'll get those definitions under our belt. Defensibility, obviously you're getting tired of hearing that. Cost and time, we have to assume. How much does this test cost? Is this something we create in-house? Is it something that's expensive to conduct? Is it something I have to purchase from an outside source and maybe have it administered by someone who's licensed in the state? So cost and time are considerations, because you'll have a budget to work with. And priority, that is, there might be 10, 12, oh my god, I love this test, I love this test, I want to do this test, we need to do that test as well. You can't do 12, 15 tests for most positions, right? It's too expensive, it's too time consuming, so you might have to prioritize and really get down to what are the most important things to test, right? Now, examinations and attainments, simple, straightforward, legally required certifications. If you're hiring nurses, they have to have a certification, right? Degrees, easy to check, right? Ask, and any kind of licensing. So think about a truck driver. Hey, it'll say what ODL, commercial driver's license required, right on the sign out in front of the hiring board. So they expect to see that. Now, with all these, what about evaluating the effectiveness? Validity and reliability. Does the assessment method reliably measure a valid aspect of performance? Now, I use both words in the definition there. A little problematic. We'll unpack those as we move on, though. But understand that reliability needs to be assessed, validity needs to be assessed. Questions in the find and measure assignment tap into both of those ideas. Now, also, when we're talking that find and measure assignment, when we're discussing reliability and validity, the question is, this is a reliable test, how do you know? And that is, has this test been used by others before? Has it been demonstrated to be reliable empirically? What are the sources of that? Who's done that demonstration? Done that research? And then validity is a little more on us. Does it validly predict on-the-job performance? Return on investment. Does the assessment method demonstrate a positive cost-benefit relationship? That is, shall we use it or not in that regard? And how do management, incumbents, applicants, others react to the assessment method? Okay, so that's another point of evaluation. Now, the second page of evaluating effectiveness, does it differentiate the candidates? If we give a test, right, and everyone scores in the 95 percentile, if everyone scores 95 out of 100 or better, we could argue that, man, this test doesn't differentiate the candidates. Everyone does well, so then it becomes useless, right, in that case, because it doesn't, we want to rank order candidates. If the test doesn't differentiate them, we haven't done our job. And usability, will the assessment be used properly, will be used accurately, and will be used consistently? Those get to issues of the reliability of the measure as well, so we got to make sure that it leads to a reliable, objective result. And adverse impact. So now we have to track gender, we have to track ethnicity, we have to track any protected category status, right? And then we have to see if people within those groups then are affected differently, score differently as groups on the basis of that test. And if we do detect adverse impact, there's Quincy, if we do detect adverse impact, then we have to eliminate that test or modify it or do whatever else we need to do. Okay? So, the assessment plan then, job requirement matrix is used to develop and organize, prioritize assessment, selection, and use. Note that when you guys were rank ordering teachers and then developing lists in that repertory grid of qualities, you are halfway done with developing an assessment plan. That could be considered kind of an initial kind of visit in this, and I'll show the job requirement matrix specifically next. So, it's going to use to organize, prioritize, assessment, selection, and use. What assessments are designed to assess each person's specification job requirement? So we take the assessment, and this should be done in kind of the opposite direction. Hey, here's my person's specification or my job requirement, and then I go out and I begin to look for tests that will give me an objective measure on those qualities. What is the order of assessment? And this might be a logistics issue that we are going to have like 2 or 3 group level assessments, so we want to do those on the first day all together, and then we'll do the individual assessments at a future time. That is the second day. So there are all kinds of different logic or criteria that might determine the order of assessment. We might have a multiple kind of hurdle approach. That is, if you do okay on this assessment, if you do okay on assessment 1 and 2, we'll call you back for further assessment. But if you don't pass assessment 1 or 2, then in fact we're going to reject you at that point in time and not go on to assessments, let's say 3 through 5. And that's a way to save time and money as well. What is the relative weighting of assessment? And this is going to be largely subjective judgment call until it becomes validated later on. But how important is each assessment? How much weight should we give to each score? Does an assessment score represent a score on a continuum, or is it just a hurdle? And I mentioned hurdle just a moment ago. That is pass-fail, right? It might be some assessments. If you can't do this, boom, you're out of the running. Other assessments might be graded on a continuum. Okay, you do this at a range of 35 out of a potential score of 50. Right? So the job requirement matrix. Okay, so what can we look at? Well, let's suppose the job requirement for a project manager in this particular tabular example. So the job duty, project management. Okay, project managers, yeah, they manage projects, duh. Supervision and customer service are also important qualities. So we've determined this, and notice your repertory grid is really a great basis. So if we look at teachers, job duty would be like the 10 items, the 6 items, how many other items you had, would be the job duties. The tasks then are what is part of the task. So delivers a good lecture might be one thing. Okay, so you have to design a lecture, but before you design a lecture you have to find the material. So I find the material, determine what material I should incorporate, then design the presentation of the material. Right? So notice that the tasks are kind of subunits of project management or teaching or what have you. So you have the job duty, the tasks, and then the relative importance. Where do you think you might find out about the relative importance of these? Well, probably incumbents, subject matter experts, and supervisors over those positions. So, relative importance of job duty, you see 35%, 35%, 30%. Right? This allows you to begin to prioritize what it is you want to test. If you had a 35, 35, 20, 5, and 5, the 5 elements then might be lower priority in assessment, might not need to be assessed at all. Now, convert this, the relative time spent, right? And this might be different, not as an important number to what we're doing here. Competency or KSAO. So what knowledge, skills, or abilities, and notice, this is where ONET can really be used to fill in the blanks as well. I hope at this point you see we're going to start pulling in these diverse elements that we've kind of learned separately into the big picture, organizing it into an assessment process. And then characteristics of the worker, importance of KSAO, low, 10 is high, E is essential, and this is a relative rating. And that might come from subject matter experts as well. It might be a combination of subject matter experts, incumbents, and supervisors generating those numbers. But it gives us an idea of what to prioritize. Okay. Now, the assessment plan continued then. Okay, customer focus. How are we going to get to that? That is, so the characteristics that we're looking for is what is a person's customer focus, the applicant's customer focus, what is the level of their accounting skills, this is for an accountant, right? Their budgeting skills, their time management skills, their delegating skills, ability to use company software, and their attention to detail. Okay, to what extent, how important is this to the job, and it rank orders these skills, right? Now, are we going to select on the basis of these skills? That is, got to have it. So we're going to select on the basis, that implies we need an assessment item for it. But notice here, ability to use the company software. What we're saying is we're not going to select for that. We're willing to train for that. So it becomes a different element. Notice there are no more figures here to look at that. It's just a potential. So resume, we can look here. We can see customer focus as indicated by the resume. And then we call the person up. We do a phone screen on the basis of receiving the resume. If the resume is okay, we do the phone screen, right? And then, if all goes well then, the recruiter actually interviews them. And at this point, finally, we see the last two pieces, the simulation, that is, they're going to be asked to simulate it in some way, shape, or form. And then finally, one of the last things that's probably going to happen is a hiring manager interview. So what we're doing is saying, look, we're going to measure the level of potential customer focus from this person from these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 sources. Now I know that sounds kind of complex, but we're really trying to be objective about this and very detailed in the way we assess it. Okay? We'll take one more example to take a look at that. Let's go down to attention to detail, because it's the bottom and it's easier for me to track from this position, no other reason, right? That's something that we're going to select for, does this applicant. So the phone screen we've designed to somehow measure their attention to detail during that point in time. We're also going to have the recruiter interview look at that, but the simulation is going to be by far and large the largest weighting for their attention to detail score. Ultimately, what we're looking at then is a score for each one of these, except the accounting software, right? So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 elements. And we might then envision we're going to hire on the basis of a person's score on these characteristics as measured by those devices. Okay? So it's a way to take something that's very complicated and kind of unpack it into a very detailed fashion so we can kind of figure out where we're at any given time. Okay? Questions? I know that's so stupid. And maybe the way the questions should work then, if you got questions, the next time we have a Zoom get-together, then you can ask the questions then, right? It'd probably be a great place to do it. Maybe if I can think of something else. So I'm going to call this good. I hope you guys have a great day. Bye-bye.